to Four Guys, a Girl, and a Show. I'm JQ. With me, like always, is Mr. Brian Isaacs.
Hey, hey.
Mr. Mike Hopkins.
Yo.
Miss Stacy Rader.
Good evening.
Dave is out sick today, so we have Jeff the Grandhammer Speller with us tonight.
Yeah, buddy.
And tonight our special guest will be Mr. Chris Giarrusso from the G-Man comic series. We'll be happy to have him on in a little bit to give you a little bit of a background story on him in a second. Today we're going to tackle the topics of the AVX conclusion. If you didn't know, AVX number 12 came out this week, and we had a brief conclusion to this 12-story arc. Some good, some bad. We'll pass the torch around the table and see what people think about it. We're also going to talk about our Comic-Con experiences, and I'm pretty sure between the lot of us, we have some pretty funny stories to tell you, both funny and maybe even scary. Also, if you ever go to Comic-Cons, you'll know there's club exclusives or con exclusives, however you want to call it. Each booth will have their own say on what they're going to bring into the table, and as far as toys go. So, without further ado, let's kick it around and see how everyone's doing. How y'all doing this week?
Doing good.
Can't complain.
Same.
Complaining will get you nowhere. All right. Well, our first guest today is going to be Mr. Chris Giarrusso from the G-Man comics. If you haven't read these comics, they are really, really fun to read. They look like they're depicted. Hey, is that Chris?
Yes.
Hey, Chris, what's going on, man?
How you doing?
We're just giving you a quick little introduction here.
All right.
Chris is also known for doing the world-famous mini Marvels in the back of some of the old comic books. We saw some pretty cool scripts and skits he did with some of our favorite characters. Well, Chris, since you're on, why don't you tell us a little about what we got here? How did you start out drawing comics?
You mean just in general, or professionally, or what?
Both.
For Marvel? Started out with an internship at Marvel. Start there. As an editorial intern, and I did a lot of photocopying and mailing out stuff to people. And I would bug my editor all the time about ideas I had for the What If comic series, because he was the editor at the time. And they were mostly just gag stuff, but he said that if I wanted to do a comic strip version of one of my stupid ideas, that he would print it in the letters page. And that was my first published experience with Marvel.
Cool. And how did G-Man spawn from all that?
Well, G-Man is kind of like the character that I'd always worked on when I was like a kid, like in high school. You know, something I made up, like a character based on myself. So that was kind of always like a vanity thing on the back burner. And after I had some success with the mini Marvels, Eric Larson offered me an opportunity to do a strip in his book, The Savage Dragon. So I just figured, all right, I'll do the mini Marvel version of G-Man, which at that point had just been like, a little bit generic. But I figured I was doing pretty well with the kid stuff, so I modified and developed it from there.
Now, doing some research on you, I noticed that G-Man has some more personal background for you. The character, I guess, was portrayed by yourself, and the character G-Man's brother was took after your brother.
Right, yeah. Yeah, heavily inspired by the dynamic of my relationship with my actual older brother, Dave. Great Man's kind of probably my favorite character in the book because he's so fun to write, because he's smarter and meaner than G-Man.
And why don't you give us a quick background on G-Man? Like, his powers stem from his cape?
Yeah, he, in G-Man's world, he's kind of like, he lives in a world, like the world that I kind of grew up reading about, where there's like superheroes all over the place. It's not really, it's still a cool thing, but it's like a common part of society that superheroes exist. So they're kind of like professional athletes, and that every kid wants to be a superhero. So the first G-Man story we see, he's reading a book about trying to learn how to fly, and the book gives all kinds of tips on how to defeat gravity and all that. And one of the tips is to to wear a cape, because cape convinces the environment that you're capable of defying the laws of gravity. And then there's like an addendum to it that says a little asterisk that points out magic capes work the best. So they just happen to have a magic cape in the closet in the family's house. So he cuts up the cape and he cuts up the blanket into a cape-sized piece, and he wears that. And then it works. So his older brother Dave takes one of the scrap pieces and he uses it as a belt. It gives him the same superpowers.
Cool. And would you say these books were intended to be a kid-friendly book, or that's something that was coincidental?
Initially it's coincidental because I was always writing naturally, always having wanted to be a humor comic strip, like a newspaper comic strip professional. And those are all kind of family-friendly, all ages by nature. So that's kind of what my natural voice is when it comes to writing. So, and especially when I did the mini Marvels gags, like I was just going for humor more than anything else. It just so happens that it's devoid of anything that's inappropriate for kids, and there's no cursing and there's no strong sexual content. So, by default, it automatically becomes, good for kids because it's the only thing that Marvel publishes that's not inappropriate for kids these days. And so G-Man I approach the same way, realizing that, I have kind of, this approach is good for readers of all ages. I didn't see any reason to change things up.
Oh, awesome. Well, I'm going to pass the question torch around the table here a little bit, and I'm going to throw it over to our friend Stacy.
Hi, Chris.
Hello, Stacy.
Hello. I wanted to ask you about going back to Image. You've done recently some 20th anniversary variant covers. How that came about, and which one was your favorite to draw?
Well, I can't say which one. I think, I have a lot. All of them are really fun. I think all the initial founding members of Image, like those books, were probably my favorite, just because I was in high school when Image formed, and I remember when all those books were brand new, and so it's really cool to do the covers for Youngblood and Savage Dragon and Cyberforce and Shadowhawk, because those were all the original founders' books that launched Image. And every time I see any of those covers, it kind of brings me back to those days. It almost evokes the same feeling when I see like Amazing Fantasy 15 or Fantastic Four #1 cover. It's got that same kind of impact for me. As for how they came about, I'd been doing like the cover recreations for a while, like just as commissions or to sell at conventions and stuff. So I've covered like all the like Amazing Fantasy 15, Fantastic Four #1, Avengers #1, X-Men #1. I've been doing all that stuff for a while, and people have seen them on the internet, on my Facebook page or on my website. And Eric Stevenson, the publisher at Image, was asking me, like, how come Marvel has never published any variant covers using this stuff? And I said, I don't know. They're just, they're not interested, or they don't think it's worth it or whatever. And he's always liked them. He was always a big fan of it. So when Image had their 20th anniversary this year, he wanted to incorporate the cover recreation work that I do. And it was his idea to take, 12 of Image's most popular or famous titles and give it the Chris G mini version treatment. Still there?
Okay.
Yeah, we're
Yeah,
all
I'm
still.
here. No, I'm still here. Okay, great. Thanks. I guess I'll pass it over to Mike.
How looking at your G-Man book, how influenced was it by Calvin and Hobbes? Because to me, it was very the kid kind of looks like a Calvin kind of character.
Well, I love Calvin and Hobbes, but it's definitely more influenced by Peanuts and Charles Schultz, because that was kind of the strip that I grew up reading. And Calvin and Hobbes came out after I was already like, you know, a long-time reader of comic books and comic strips. So while I definitely like Calvin and Hobbes, I wouldn't necessarily call it a direct influence as much as I would Peanuts.
Yes. Okay. Jeff?
Hi, Chris.
Hello.
So I'm a high school English teacher, and I've got a creative writing course, and one of the big things they always struggle with is, oh my gosh, I am totally blocked. I have no idea where to go with the story or how to generate ideas. Do you have any suggestions on how like young writers can overcome something like writer's block?
Well, what I always just tend to do is I just pull from my real life. You know, it's basically a cheat, you know, because I don't really have to like think of anything necessarily. I just go, all right, what, you know, I just inspired by whatever it is that makes me upset or whatever made me upset when I was a kid, and I'll just take it and I'll extrapolate.
Sure. Mr. Brian, any questions?
Chris, congratulations on the image covers.
Thank you.
I've been a big fan of yours for a while. I mean, I definitely see the Peanuts influence, especially when you came out with the Mid-Ohio promo.
Right.
Nice, nice little homage to the Peanuts dancing number. Really enjoyed that for both the Marvel and the Image. Really cool, I have to say.
Thank you.
I found it interesting with the Image covers that, you know, 2 books were just left out of the founders, and I guess one is due to licensing, obviously. You know, obviously you can't have Jim Lee's Wildcats in there anymore.
Right, yeah, I don't miss behind that.
Yeah. But I also didn't, you know, it also kind of made me wonder about, like, where Paul's Portfolio's Wetworks kind of, because I'm not too sure if he's considered one of the founders or not. I'm a little fuzzy on that one.
I think he was considered an original founder, but he didn't get Wetworks up and running right away because I think he had personal
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, he had a lot of.
But I think Wetworks ended up being a part of the
DC,
the Wildstorm universe. So by virtue of that, it's now part of DC.
Yeah.
I'm not entirely certain.
But, I mean, I for one am enjoying G-Man. I love the new. I mean, I love the mini Marvels to begin with. When you first started out with those were hilarious, and then when you compile them into like a full book, it was great.
Thank you.
G-Man I love the original characters you created, and, you know, I like the little nod about, you know, the storyline where you had the multiverse. That was hilarious. Cape Crisis is great. You know, best of luck with that, man. It's a great read, and some people say it's kids' comics, but I'm sorry, I find that, you know, you have some adult humor hidden in there too. It's just maybe it's just the type of humor I grew up with, but it's just I'm enjoying it. I really am.
I appreciate that. Thanks. I mean, like I say, I like to call it all ages, and there's a lot of all ages comic creators that like to say that their stuff is all ages, but these days that tends to mean to people that, oh, this is just for kids and you're not going to like it if you're not a kid.
Right.
But so it's nice to hear from somebody like you that is right in that zone that I'm shooting for, that receives it the way that I would like it to be received.
Yeah, it's you know, because I have read you know the actual kid friendly stuff, and it's just like, I hate to say it, but, you know, it's kind of dumbed down a little just for, you know, for kids, obviously. But your stuff isn't.
Well, that's the pitfall that everybody that does the all age humor wants to stay away from. That nobody wants to talk down to kids, and I would imagine that there are probably readers that think I'm talking down to kids, and that everyone that is talking down that seems like they're talking down to kids is not trying to do it.
Yeah.
I guess it's tricky to do, you know.
Yeah, like, you seem to master it. You really do. It's just, it's definitely a great, like you said, it is an all ages read. I'm 42 and I'm enjoying this series of fans. So you're doing something right here, in my opinion.
Thank you.
Well, Chris, there's a program in some of the schools. I'm an elementary school teacher, and there's a program that we have called Accelerated Reader, and I've noticed an influx of kid-friendly graphic novels coming out. Is that something that maybe you could jump into or thought about jumping into at some point?
Yeah, I've heard of that program, and then since the day I heard about it, I haven't remembered anything about it until you said it just now. So it's something I need to follow up on and take care of when I get a chance.
I think G-Man can really, really flow in the school libraries, and it would be popular with the kids as well.
I will do everything that I can to comply.
Awesome.
I might have to call you later and ask you for some help.
Definitely. Nope, I can point you in the right direction. I can help you out with that.
All right.
I've got another question.
Yes.
Do you ever see G-Man as a cartoon?
Oh, I was just going to ask that myself.
Every day in my sleep.
I think it would work great. It's hilarious.
That would be fun. I think like everybody that creates their own comics would love to see that. Or, I guess I can't speak for everybody. I don't know if it's called selling out, but I grew up on cartoons and movies and action figures, and I would love to see G-Man in all of those media.
If you had your choice of channels, which one would you post him on? Cartoon Network, Nickelodeon?
It doesn't matter to me necessarily. I know that Nickelodeon doesn't really deal with properties unless they have full ownership, or that's what I've been told. So that might be a deterrent. But that being the case, nobody's like fighting over stuff to a cartoon. I mean, if there's actually people interested, then I'm willing to listen to anybody.
Nice.
Well, cool. Anyone have any questions for Chris? Well, Chris, we're going to be talking about some other topics today. If you want to stick around and chime in, we'd love to have you.
Sure thing.
Cool. Well, let's get to our first topic. Our first topic is going to be the AVX, Avengers vs. X-Men, round 12, the conclusion issue of this 12-story arc. And I'll tell you right now, I'm a DC guy, and I picked up this read from zero just to read about it. Hey, Avengers and X-Men fighting, let's see what happens of it. And it's been a roller coaster, in my opinion, of okay, not so good. And my favorite issue was issue 9. That was the issue that blew my socks off in this read. Then it went back down to, okay, this is getting very predictable. A couple panels here and there. But the saving grace of this whole book was Marvel's AR app ability. Again, if you don't know about this app, it's available on Android and iPhone, where you can download. You put your phone over the panel that has the AR logo, and the panel comes to life. Whether it be a 3D interpretation of the page, artist breakdowns from sketch to color and all that stuff. All the way to even the artist or writers themselves talking about how this panel came alive, what was the storyboard of that issue. That's been the saving grace of this whole series, is this AR technology they infused in this book. The story itself, we laughed about a couple times, talking about heroes fighting heroes. For those of you who haven't read it yet, it's going to probably be in graphic novel form pretty soon. Like I said, it's been a roller coaster ride up and down for me. As a DC guy, I got it. It didn't take much not to get it. So I don't know how that speaks for the writing or what. But I was able to follow it pretty fluidly. I personally give it a 6. And I know some of our panel may not agree with that. However, issue 9 to me was by far, it took Peter Parker and made Peter Parker the Spider-Man that we all know he could be. The whole, Uncle Ben with great power comes great responsibility. He took a beating by Colossus and Magic in that cave to protect his fellow friends, and all the way up to the point where he was blacking out and taking that last hit from Colossus, to me, really impressed the heck out of me. Mike, what you think about it?
I think like the same thing with Civil War. It started out strong, but it seemed to start petering out towards the end. So it wasn't. It's for me. My favorite was the first couple books, and then after that, it just kind of slowly started getting boring.
Any issues stand out for you that you like the most?
You know, I'm with you on the Spider-Man one. I think, you know, to actually see Spider-Man as Spider-Man and not the usual it definitely did stand out for me. The same as it did for you.
Cool. Stacy, what about you, honey? What you think?
Well, I'll be honest, I did not read all of the series, so I can't really give a super educated analysis of every issue. I read probably the first 4 or 5 and kind of flipped through the rest of them and caught up online just to keep up with the story. And I think it's a couple of things for me. One, I'm just very weary with event books. I mean, I know that they're a necessary evil, but I'm an indie girl for the most part, and you don't have a lot of event books in the independent comics. So, you just get really good stories, and you don't have to have this big thing that converges to tell a good story. You just tell a good story. And so maybe that's part of it. I will say that of the issues I read, and maybe this is really sad, but I really liked the Zero issue. Like, I thought the Zero issue was a good introduction. It told a good story, and it almost could stand alone as a one and done. So, I don't know that it's something I'll ever go back and read, and just kind of catching up with the story just in case something leaks over into Marvel now. But, yeah, I don't know. It was a big old meh for me.
What about you, Hammer?
I'm in the same boat as Stacy. I'm a primarily DC reader, so I've definitely had my share of event books. But I don't dabble into Marvel too much at all, so I haven't really read it. But I do like to keep up, so I've been kind of checking online to see what's what. But I don't know. The whole thing from the beginning kind of seemed to me like it was going to be an excuse to get a new action figure with, like, Wolverine and some big flaming phoenix wings or something. Like, it just kind of seemed very, like, this big marketing ploy, and maybe we'll get some cool toys, and maybe somebody will be brought back, and are we talking spoilers, by the way, before I...
Go ahead. Do.
My understanding was that Professor X is dead. Is that correct?
What?
Spoiler alert.
Yeah, more like again.
Yeah, so I kind of felt like from the beginning, I felt like we were probably going to be seeing either somebody die or somebody come back, whether that was Jean Grey or I didn't think they'd kill Professor X, but, I don't know.
Well, I mean, talking about the spoilers of the book, I mean, in issue 12, Cyclops started, having this super surge of the Phoenix Force come through him, and then you do see Jean. Well, he sees Jean, but it's really Hope. And then as Hope is trying to channel the Phoenix out of her with Scarlet Witch, they channel out the Phoenix, but she uses the Phoenix power to bring the mutants back. So I guess there's more mutants popping up now. So it's, if we're going that route.
Wait, the mutants were gone? When were the mutants gone?
Scarlet Witch did one of those little Marvel snap of the fingers.
From one of the, that was House of M, wasn't it?
That was House of M.
Okay.
Yeah, all the mutants, there was only 99, or the 99 that were only left, and somehow the X-Men, who were in the epicenter of the entire event, just happened to manage to retain their powers. Another lovely fun fact that Bendis likes to ignore. This is the only good thing to come out of this event. Bendis is off the Avengers. Thank you, God. Worst thing ever to happen to this book. Puts on two characters for a freaking marketing ploy. Call it what you want. I'm sorry. Yeah, Spider-Man deserves to be on that team. Wolverine, no. He does not deserve to be on that team. Never did. This was a cluster F, and everybody just drank the freaking Kool-Aid. I am glad Bendis is off, but unfortunately Bendis' next project is to go back in time and bring the first-class X-Men into the modern time. This is the best he can do. Really? This is crap.
I saw that, and all I could think was when I first started reading Green Lantern, and Ron Mars was doing it, and like around issue 100, you got current GL Kyle Rayner, and then there was some sort of crazy time travel thing, and Hal Jordan shows up, and
yeah, but that makes sense, and it was only for one storyline. It wasn't an ongoing series. We knew, with that, you knew the storyline was going to end. This is an ongoing series. And, it's just like, Marvel is just like, hey, it's Bendis. He can do whatever he wants. It's ridiculous. I like Bendis on Ultimate Spider-Man. I liked his powers. I thought his Daredevil was a major thing. Alias is a great series. But his Avengers sucked. It sucked. What Marvel needs to do is bring back Kurt Busiek and get the Avengers back to where they were.
Tell us how you really feel, Brian.
Oh, don't even get me started.
What about you, Chris? Did you happen to catch any wind of the AVX drama?
I read a little bit of stuff here and there. I think I've been reading all the Avengers issues of it, so I haven't really read the main actual miniseries. But I just been reading the Avengers for Walter Simonson's art because I'm a big fan of Walt.
He's a nice guy.
So yeah, I'm just kind of peripherally aware of how the whole thing panned out, and I think you guys just in talking about it actually told me more than I knew. so now I know what happened.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see now because the Marvel Now is supposed to kick off this coming month. So you got A plus X come in the fold, and with A plus X starting to come, there was a panel in issue 12. It's going to be 2 stories written by famous writers and drawn by famous artists. And I guess every issue is going to be something different. From what it looks like, it's not going to be one of those canon books where it's going to be, okay, next week issue 2 is going to follow. It's going to be, stories told by both teams. I mean, I could be wrong and mistaken, but that's what I gather from this panel they had. This huge 2-panel page in the book. So we'll see what happens with A plus X and Marvel Now, and see what they do. Y'all ready to jump into the next issue we have here?
Yes, sir.
All right, we're going to talk about our Comic-Con experiences. Now, we have a pretty colorful panel here who's probably have some pretty good stories to tell you about some cons they've been to, and we'll jump in. Let's have Hammer go first. Mr. Hammer, what about you?
Hey. Oh man. My first thought was finding purchases like before I used to do a lot of like online shopping. Like now I just go to eBay and I go, oh, what's that thing? Where's that thing? Can I find it? Blah blah blah. But before I was really doing a lot of online stuff, I had really only kind of read in passing about Miracle Man, and I knew there was a lot of like controversy over who had the rights, and I had kind of gleaned some of the story, again, just using the internet, but I really didn't know too much about it until other than like Alan Moore wrote it, and it was supposed to be awesome. And so traveling a con floor one time years and years ago, I remember seeing the first 3 issues. And I about flipped. I was like, wait a minute, I felt like I was a holy grail of some kinds, and I immediately was checking all of my finances to see. I'm sure I paid far more than I probably should have, but I could not wait to get them home to tear into them. And now I've got the whole set, and they're great. And I wish Marvel would finish the story or let Neil Gaiman finish the story. But so that was one of my prized first con finds.
Cool. Mike, what about you? What about a con experience you had?
I suggest bringing some Febreze with you. because I'm telling you, sometimes these guys don't shower, and especially if it's a nice warm day, you get to enjoy the smell of nerd.
I actually switched seats. I was at one of the cons. They were premiering that Batman Gotham Knights movie, and this guy and his girlfriend came walking by us, and I was practically holding my breath. And I looked at my wife. I said, "I think there's 2 seats right up there. We're moving. Ready? 1, 2, 3, go."
Stacey, you got any cool con stories?
Yeah, I don't have a great deal of con experience. I'm kind of fairly new to going to cons, but the first con I went to was a show in Knoxville, which is about an hour and a half from where I live, called Adventure Con, and it was more of an entertainment con, so there was a lot of, celebrities, well, okay, let's say second and third tier celebrities, being that it was a show in Knoxville, but it was interesting to see people just sitting at their tables, like just being out on the floor. We were walking away from kind of where the autographs were, and Peter Mayhew walked by us, and he's, to me, I'm 5'3", so he's like 1,000 feet tall to me. And so he just looked at us and he was like, "Hello." I mean, just the nicest guy ever. And Corey Feldman actually, kind of pushed off my husband to get around the con, and I missed that, which I was so mad because I love Corey Feldman. I've seen Ernie Hudson eating a sandwich, so stuff like that. But I have to say my favorite con experiences are at Heroes Con. Anybody who talks to me, usually starting in January, or sometimes the day I get back from Heroes Con, is I start talking about, when's Heroes Con? Like, I want to go back. I'm already ready. Because that is the show, if you're a comic fan, to go to. Because the creators, and Chris can probably attest to this, hopefully he didn't have a horrible experience and say, no, it was awful, but everybody's very approachable. You can talk to people.
I'd say Heroes Con is maybe one of my favorite shows. So everything you're saying is consistent with my experience at Heroes.
That's awesome, because it's just it's almost like a homecoming to me, because you have all these creators who don't really get to see each other. I know I talked to Steve Niles a couple of times, and he always says it's like his vacation, because he gets to hang out with Bernie, which I think he hangs out with Bernie all the time anyway. But I don't know. It's just one of those experiences that I'm a fangirl for comics, and I'm such a fangirl for Heroes Con. Shelton Drum puts on an amazing show, and just he has such a passion for it. And big props to Dustin Harbin, who Rico Renzi is the guy that runs the show now, but Dustin Harbin was really the guy that got Indie Island going. And so for somebody like me who can just spend hours perusing indie books, where I live, we don't have a lot of that in our stores. Most of it's DC Marvel and the big indies, but not like the little zines and, the hand-created books. So, I can't say enough nice things about Heroes Con, but that's my con every year. That's the con I always want to go to. So.
See, I get a different taste of the con experience because at 3 Alarm Comics, the shop I also help out at, we go to Wizard World New Orleans, and we also go to MegaCon in Orlando. And both those cons are fun in their own rights, but being a vendor, it's kind of a different experience. So I have not really attended a con that I can remember that I wasn't working per se. But the people you meet and in Artist Alley and being friends with Steve Scott and Mitch Bird and John Dell, I get to meet people on a different tier than the normal patron would get to meet them. And I tell you, it's so fun going to the drink and draw. I think Chris can probably talk about that, where the artists all get together and they're in a ballroom and they just start. The only rule is there's no licensing. Draw what you want. And so like people who usually draw, Spider-Man can draw Batman and so on and so forth. And it's really cool to actually watch them go to town and hear stories and whatnot and so forth. And I tell you, one of my favorite stories was when we were at MegaCon in Orlando, and my boss Scott was outside smoking a cigarette, and Lou Gossett Jr. was out there with him, and they just start talking and just start going to town, talking. So I go out there to ask Scott a question, and he's talking to Lou Gossett Jr., and my mouth kind of went like, "Oh wow, that's Lou Gossett Jr." I'm like, "Wow," and then I said, Mr. Gossett Jr. I shook his hand. He goes, "Please, it's Lou." So every time you called him Mr. Gossett or Mr. Jr., he got mad. He goes, It's Lou. But, just hearing his stories and, he brings out Ernie Hudson and, it's like really cool to talk to these people and, if you're ever walking through the aisles and you see someone with no line, go talk to an artist. I mean, you'll definitely hear stories that will just impress you and make you laugh and smile, and you just never know what you might like and turn yourself onto. But, like I say, I get to see the con from a different spin. I think, Brian could probably attest to that as well, being in the press area. So, but let's see. Let's go with our guest Chris. So we'll leave Brian's stories for last. I'm sure Brian's got really good stories. Chris, let's tell us some stories from cons you go to.
Oh, geez, it's so open-ended. Nothing really springs to the top of the list to go with. If you got any specific questions, I wouldn't mind answering, or if you want to go along to the next guy, maybe something will spark my memory.
I will go to Brian then.
Wow. I mean, like you, Jason, my con experience has changed. I've gone from observer to press, and it is become pretty much a second job for me. So it's a little of a different experience. But in my experience, I've met so many nice people there. I've gone to the Baltimore Con. I've gone to several the New York cons. Done a couple up in Boston. They're really good shows. Did a couple of the Wizard Worlds, the Big Apple Con, Wizard World Philly. Those were a lot of fun. I think the thing that I would like people to know is it really breaks my heart when I see some of these Golden Age and Silver Age creators who don't just seem to get the recognition, and you got the flavor of the month with a line around the corner. And, it's... A case in point is Erwin Haston. A lot of people don't know his name, but he's the guy who created Wildcat of the Justice Society. He was a long-time Green Lantern artist. And he's like one of the nicest, old-timers that there is. And it's like nobody goes up to him. And it really breaks my heart. People just forget the history. But
I think that's tied into the 90s, though, because they so overflooded us with the recent stuff that nobody really got to truly appreciate the older stuff.
Well, the older stuff is available. It's just we live in a society where people just don't want to do the research, too.
Exactly.
They don't care about, where Green Lantern's history is. They just, want to know what today's stories are. And,
well, I would say that I bet people would care if they were more informed. Like, to be honest, I know Erwin Hansen as Dondi, the guy
right.
with the Dondi comic strip,
yeah.
But you just mentioned he created Wildcat, and I think that's what you said, right?
Yes, he did. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't know that. So, I wonder if he was maybe promoted as creator of Wildcat, or the other DC stuff that he did. If more people would take notice, but I think the average person walking by, they just go, "Yeah, I don't know who that is." So they don't. I think it's natural for people to get most excited about the thing that they're reading, like right now.
Good point.
So, but I agree. It would. I think all these guys definitely it would be nice to see them get a lot more recognition and success.
But where does the blame fall for something like that? Do we start pointing fingers at the publishers? Is it their fault for not saying so-and-so created so-and-so? I mean, you always see it for Batman and Superman, the big wigs. How come we don't see it for every character? I mean,
Maybe.
Well,
I think if I was like running a convention, I might make it more of a priority to make sure that that he's billed as and listed as having created all the things that he's created. So that at least if I'm taking the time to invite a guy to my show, I want everybody to know why that guy's there.
right.
But with the internet and WowWiki and all that stuff, I mean, you can pretty much look up anybody and find out what they did nowadays. The problem is people don't take the time to do it, like you said, Brian.
I mean, you guys both have a good point, but the bottom line, it just seems like there's a large lack of interest, and personally, it just kills me. I mean,
Well, you remember you and I talked about the shift from the good guy being the good guy to the bad guy is now the good guy?
yeah,
I think that a lot of that is what is the reason why you don't see people interested in the older guys that are you're in my generation growing up where we read the good guys being the good guys, and I think that's a lot to do with why they're not the focus like they used to be, because nobody's looking for the goody two-shoe good guy anymore.
I guess you got a point.
But
that might have a lot to do with like how many people even know who Wildcat is at this point.
I can be honest, I don't.
I mean, I think they had him in the jail, the Justice League Unlimited cartoon.
Yeah, there was a background story for him, and that's how people got their cues from him. And then when the DC Universe Classics made an action figure about him, there was two versions. One was the original, and one was his son. So it was one of those things where
No, it was one was black, one was blue. That was how the action figure was.
I thought the blue one was his son.
No, the blue his son in the comic books is a werebeast.
Oh, okay. That's right. That's right.
Coincidence.
Shame on you, Jay.
Oh, I get my ball dropped now and then. Come on, man.
Yes, I have such a large thing of useless knowledge. What can I tell you?
That's
why
why
you're the
Brian's the
professor.
professor. Yeah, he's the professor.
But I've met a lot of great people. In fact, I met you once or twice, Chris, and it's nice to see people it's nice to talk to. Yeah, you're very down to earth people. In my experiences, there are a lot of people like you that are just really down to earth, easy to come up to. You're willing to, you're willing to meet.
You.
Yeah, you're willing to meet your fans and things, but there are just some that I've already made my feelings well known about Bendis, and I think Grant Morrison's ego is like way over the. I mean, come on, the guy hasn't been in comics. He's been in comics for almost 15 years, and he's got a con named after him. Can his ego get any more bigger?
Well, in his defense, if he put the thing together, go for it.
I guess you got a point, but I'm also just not a fan of his period. So
Yeah, don't get him started on him.
Chris, were you at Baltimore Comic-Con this year?
No. I went there 1 year, I don't know, 3 or 4 years ago.
Not your favorite spot, though.
Huh?
They're probably not your favorite spot.
No, it was a nice show. I think it had kind of like a Heroes vibe to it, if I remember. It was like a lot more like people enthusiastic about comics.
I would say this year was probably like that. The past few years have been more toy-driven. This year was definitely comic-heavy. I found a lot more independent artists around this year than they used to, and they also opened up the floor more as well.
One thing I've noticed is that there seems to be a lot more conventions than ever before.
yeah,
Like it seems like there's 10 new ones every year.
I think
So-
there's Wizard to blame for a lot of that. Their infinite wisdom.
Well, a lot of the thing is, though, like a lot of the way that they expanded was they would just buy a local convention, so it wasn't necessarily they created a new one as much as they just put a new one more on the map or drew more attention to them. But yeah, just it makes it tough to go to all the conventions I would like to go to.
Well, I'm not too sure if you remember last year's snafu when Wizard tried to do a con I think it was either a week before or a week after New York Comic Con. No, they tried to have a competing con.
Yeah, I think initially they were going to do it the same weekend, and then like as the date approached, they moved it to the weekend right before.
Yeah, because they realized nobody wanted to. They couldn't get any guests.
Right.
It was like, really?
Chris, you see yourself coming to New Orleans for the Wizard World this year?
When is it?
End of November.
No, probably not. I have a couple of things to do in November already. I'm going to a library convention in Arkansas, and I'm doing the North Carolina con in Durham.
You're getting geared up for this week, right?
Yeah, right now I'm getting ready for New York Comic Con.
Yeah, you and me both.
Yeah, are you coming in from out of town, or are you in New York?
And I'm in Jersey, so it's as much as I really like New York Comic Con, I'm not a big fan of the Javits Center in general, just because when I've gone to some of these other places, just like Baltimore, Philly, Boston. The con center is always like right in the center of the city, so it's very accessible.
Yeah.
But the Javits Center really isn't. It's just like, it's been there for years. There's no shuttle from any public transportation. They keep talking about building a subway there, and they haven't yet. It's just like, and then parking is just like, I think one place wants like $60 a day, and I'm like, eep.
Yeah, it's harder. Like I live in Queens, and it's tougher for me to get to the New York Comic Con than it is any other show that I go to where I'm staying in a hotel, because usually you can just walk right to it.
Yeah, this one is just it's really hard to get to.
Yeah.
And the one thing I just don't, I mean, as much as I enjoy the show, the thing that just kind of drives me up a wall is I feel like the people running the con just aren't utilizing the space to the best of their ability.
Well, it seems like the convention hall is being worked on all the time.
Yeah.
And so every year it's like laid out a little bit different depending on how much space that they have to work with.
And
I think Artist Alley is in like a whole separate section this year.
Yeah, it is. And they also, but the thing is just like by the major publishers, they're putting the video games right there. And I'm like, that's always where the backup is in terms of traffic, because you got all these people who just stop and look at what's going on.
Oh, that's probably part of the floor I never see, because I tend to just sit at my table, and I go from my table to the restroom and back. I don't get much a chance to explore beyond that.
You should sometimes. You probably see some interesting sights while you're there, though.
Oh yeah. You just get the parade walking by. It's fantastic.
Are you a collector of any type, Chris? Do you collect like action figures or anything?
I used to back in my younger days, and I had to end up selling off a lot of my stuff, and I currently live in such a small apartment that it's kind of a deterrent towards collecting anything. I would love to have my action figure collections back, but there would be nowhere to put them to display them.
What was your favorite?
All my original Transformers, G1 line.
Oh yes.
And my original Star Wars action figures
From the 70s?
from the 70s and 80s, and I had all the Secret Wars toys. And,
I bet you're kicking yourself now.
yeah, I mean, no, because like I knew at the time, I was like, well, I'm gonna I'm gonna want these, but if I can get some good money for them right now. I was in college at the time.
The college
I was like,
days.
all right, well, this is gonna pay for my food for the next couple months or whatever. So I sold my my Secret Wars and my superpowers and my Star Wars stuff. And I figure, someday if I'm ever successful, I'll go dig it up again. I'll go hunting and I'll pay a little extra for it. And
Get some
that day is
G-Men
not
action
yet.
figures.
What's that?
Some G-Men action figures coming soon. Come on now.
Well, yeah, I'm definitely open to it. I would love it. I'll see. I'll call up Todd McFarlane and see if he wants to make toys.
I'd collect them. I'd put them on my shelf.
That makes two of us.
Hey, if that skater kid that skater guy, Deirdre, can get his figures done, you shouldn't have a problem.
Well,
If I could skate as good as him, then I think you might be onto something.
well, since we're talking about action figures, let's talk about con exclusives. We know that every con has their own set of toys or action figures or statues that come to the plate. Some of the big dogs, San Diego and New York, Chicago. I mean, all those big events have their own exclusive toys. Some are pretty hard to find. Some get snagged up by those, exclusive, elusive scalpers that just buy 5, 10, 15 of them and jack the prices up for us people who can't get there. But, some of these exclusives, they actually, the question always was, do they make or break a toy line? And, it's a debate that goes on for quite some time. But I know, when San Diego had, the Wonder Twins with that, light up box and, the Plastic Man, the Dark Knight Rises, Bruce Wayne with the Batman Batsuit in the Batcave. You name it. There's like this year, New York has a couple good ones, and Brian and Mike, you could probably hit more on that one. But New York's having, but people do go for these exclusives, and some people wait in line hours upon hours and miss a good chunk of the con just to get these figures. And it's mostly done by lottery. What do y'all think that does? Does that hurt a line or does that help a line? Mike?
I think value-wise it helps the line, but I think collector-wise it definitely hurts it. It's harder for the collector to get it, but it's also, as a collector, sometimes it's the chase of the figure that makes it worthwhile. So if you can't get it, but you do eventually get it, then it was worthwhile to find it.
I agree with that. The thrill of the hunt is a big part of it.
Exactly.
But is it fair to, knowing full well that person paid $25 for this exclusive, but yet now you're sitting here shelling out $90 to $100 for it on the secondary market? Is that one of those things where it's shrug your shoulders, crap happens because you didn't go, or what? How do you think that affects it?
Well, here's my thought on it, and I agree. I hate going to, because most of the stuff from San Diego ends up in Baltimore, and you end up paying double, sometimes triple the price. But the thing is, if somebody like me who lives in Maryland and wants to go to San Diego, it's going to cost me at least $1,000 or $2,000 just to go. So in the end, is it worth paying the extra $25 or spending the $1,000 to go get the stuff? So it's kind of a catch-22 situation where I agree.
Plus all the extra time that somebody mentioned you wouldn't want to really spend waiting for it in line.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, it's nice. I don't know, and it's nice too. Like, I don't know, when with San Diego this year they did that Tiny Titans set, and they had that Ghostbusters Zool, and so I didn't really have to overpay because I knew they were going to do the post con sale. So like that was kind of a bonus for me. But go.
Speaking of which,
yes.
They are doing an exclusive Zool for New York Comic Con, which is going to be Zool the Gatekeeper, which is essentially the girl, and you can either have her sitting on a bench or standing up. You have 2 sets of legs you can switch with her.
Yeah, isn't that the same one that they had at San Diego?
It's possible. I don't know.
See, that's the other thing too. I feel like some of these comics, like you look at something like the White Lantern Batman, which then like everybody buys up, and then that's like super expensive. But some of the stuff I feel like sits around. Like I can go to Toys R Us right now and buy like 10 New York Comic Con Rick Grimes bloody variant figures.
Well, the funny thing about the White Lantern Batman figure, the hilarious part is it's a freaking repaint. It's a repaint of the Ed Bendis Justice League DC Direct.
Justice League, yes, Series 2.
That's all it is just a repaint.
I had no idea.
Yeah. You're paying all that extra money for a repaint.
Now, the one thing I could never get answered about that figure was there was 1,000 made, and were they split up between C2E2 and Chicago, the Chicago Con, or was it 1,000 for each con? Because there's two separate stickers. There was WonderCon and there was C2E2.
They're never going to tell you that.
No.
Yeah, you never know. Was there 1,000 all in, or was there 1,000 for each con? Because the one I have in my collection is from C2E2.
Speaking of which, guys, I do have a small list of what's available for New York Comic Con for those who are listening that are interested in buying stuff up. At some point, can we go over it?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Pop Vinyl's doing a Black Flash exclusive, which is the Pop Vinyl is the big head, little body kind of thing. Marvel is doing an Old Man Logan with Baby Hulk for Dave's, I think, said digital subscriptions.
That is correct.
So you're not going to be able just to buy the figure. You have to sign up for a subscription.
Well, that's the big question right there. Where's Hasbro this year?
Yeah, exactly. The other thing is, Graffiti Designs is bringing out their second set of the Green Lantern figures, which is going to have John Stewart and Trocitus. Dude, I'm looking so forward to that one. These are the 3 3/4 inch Justice League figures, which I'm really liking, and I hope they kind of stick with those. But again, it depends on the popularity of them and how well they do at shows. Now, we can't forget to mention G-Man Coming Home #1.
Yes.
For Chris.
And don't forget about Mars Attacks.
Exactly.
Yes. Yes, both convention exclusives.
Now, we're also going to see from Graffiti Designs is the Aardman Batman. Aardman, I guess, is the shorts that are included in the Young Justice series.
Yeah, the claymation.
Yeah,
the claymation.
Wallace and Gromit, yeah.
Yes. Mattel is doing Temple of Darkness Sorceress. Mezco is doing Living Dead Dolls Resurrection series, which I don't know much about the Living Dead dolls, but apparently they're very popular these days. And they're also doing one of the classics, Earthworm Jim 6-inch. Nice. Gotta have me one of those.
Well, it's not just the main companies. I mean, we also have a lot of the art toys. Stacey, you're a big fan of that, right?
I am. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing to think about when you go to a con, especially like New York Comic Con or San Diego. I mean, yeah, there's the comic exclusive toys, but for somebody like me who's a huge fan of art toys and is pretty active in the art toy community, there's a lot of things to get. Last year I was lucky enough to have someone pick up a couple of things for me from some of the more exclusive, like I think one of them was a 1 of 10 or something like that. But the big one that I would check out would be the Tenacious Toys booth. They have one of my favorite toy artists, Rampage Toys. They do this toy called the Ugly Unicorn, and then there's some Cyclops dinosaurs. There's a Minotaur, and you can get those in painted or unpainted, and I think those are all extremely limited. Mike, you mentioned Mezco. They're also doing an exclusive black and white Frankenstein figure, which is really, really cool. I think it's pretty tall. I want to say it's like 9 inches. It may be taller than that, but it's a really impressive kind of artistic interpretation of the Frankenstein monster. If you're a fan of the Four Horsemen, Action Figure Express is releasing an exclusive run of the Outer Spacemen. So if you want something that's not DC Universe Classics or Motu, classics, then you can pick up Outer Spacemen there. So it's something for everybody, but definitely check out, if you're going to New York Comic Con, check out the art toys. There are some crazy, crazy things that you can see, and some of them are really expensive and some of them are reasonably priced, but all of them are definitely limited edition.
There are also, what's those, the real popular little tiny figures now? I can't remember the name of them.
Mini-Mace?
Yeah, the Mini-Mace. They're doing a crap load of those as well. I know they're doing a Thor series. They're doing a Thundercat series.
Part 2 of that.
Action Figure Express is who it is.
Yeah.
They're doing 2 sets of actually 1 and 2 of the Thundercats. And like she said, there's a bunch of statues. There are, I think also they're doing like Diamond's doing some banks with like the Frankenstein, black and white Frankenstein, a zombie from Walking Dead. I mean, there's just plenty of stuff for everybody there, and including arts and comics and stuff as well.
Hey, Mike or Brian, have you guys heard? Are they doing any of the, like at the panels where they give away like free stuff, like DC did those Court of Owls masks, or they've done the Bruce Wayne, the Wayne Casino chips? Have you heard anything about anything like that?
I haven't heard anything like that, but I'm not too sure about Marvel, but I'm almost sure that you'll see a lot of promotion for, at least at the DC booth. They have Arrow, that TV show coming out, so there'll probably be promotion for that, as well as Death in the Family, the Return of the Joker, so they'll probably have stuff for that as well.
Yes.
I saw those Court of Owls masks on eBay are going for like $60, which I think is crazy.
Ridiculous.
Oh, that's nothing. I mean, I once got something. I attend Toy Fair too. I once got this Boba Fett minifigure for free. It was based on Corrine's actual design. I got it for free. I sold it for $900.
Holy cow!
If people are that insane enough to pay for it, hey.
My God.
Call me a scalper. I put it up there starting at $10. I had no control over it.
Brian, DC is doing, Graffiti Designs is doing a Batman number 13 variant cover comic. So there's like 3 different covers, I think.
Big shock, variant covers.
Yeah. Take die-cut Joker image on the left, place it over the cover, or depicted in the middle, and, you know, it's pieced together, basically.
What are we, back in the 90s with the die-cuts?
Yeah, I heard that was making a comeback.
Oh.
And
I
of
should
course,
do a die-cut cover.
Of course, Hallmark's doing Star Wars and Battlestar Galactica ornaments, keepsake ornaments. So it's a little bit for everything for everybody.
Yeah, it sounds like it's going to be a good show, and our own Brian Isaacs will be there. Mike, you're going, or is Dave going?
Dave's going.
No, Dave's going.
So Brian and Dave will be there, and you know, if any of our listeners on, if you're going to be there, go see Chris. Chris will be in the booth as or
C10 in Artist Alley.
There you go, C10, Artist Alley. Chris, we thank you for coming, man, and hanging out with us. It was a real pleasure to have you on. And like I said, anytime you want to come back, give us a holler, man. We'd love to have you back.
All right. Thanks a lot for having me on.
All right, guys. Well, go ahead, Jeff.
No, I was just saying thanks.
Well, you know, we talked about some cool stuff today. We got to know Chris Giarrusso a little bit. We got to talk about the AVS conclusion, talked about our con experiences and con exclusives, and you know, next week, guys, tune in for a, Brian, if I'm not mistaken, we're going to have a strictly con exclusive show next week.
We're going to try to, if I don't fall asleep, yes.
So you're going to hear about all the ins and odds and what went on next week. So this point of our show, we're going to give a little shout-outs, and I'm going to shout out to the Facebook page, DC Universe Unlimited, Mr. Isaac Rodriguez's page. Gave us a nice little spot to post and promote on there. So big shout out to him and his guys over there. Really cool DC group. If you're into DC Universe Classics, DC artwork, he's all about it. Also, 3 Alarm Comics, My Little Home Away from Home, and check out our Facebook page, 4 Guys, 1 Girl, and a Show.com on Facebook. Stacy, what about you?
Well, I just want to do a shout out for my blog. I link to the show, but also do some blog posts for the League of Extraordinary Bloggers. If you've never heard of that, check out coolandcollected.com. But my blog is geekyvixen.wordpress.com.
All right, Hammer.
Yeah, I guess if along the line of con stuff and Artist Alley, if shout out to Art Baltazar and Franco and Gene Ha, because those three guys make cons for me too. They're amazing and friendly and awesome, and it's nice that they take time out to do free stuff for kids. So
Cool. Chris, you want to give a shout out to somebody?
I'll give a shout out to Art Baltazar also, because he isn't going to be able to make it to the New York Comic Con, and I'm going to be standing in for him as I battle Franco on stage in an art contest.
Awesome. Nice.
For the kids.
Nice. Hopkins, what about you?
I want to give a shout out to 80s Toy Collectors Trading Post, Stacy Mueller, and again, Mark Gallo of Imperial Toys runs this page. It's a nice page. There's a girl on there that everybody should take a look at. Her name's Laura Rose, and she does superhero pillows, which I think is a pretty neat concept. So if you ever get a chance, get on there and check it out.
And Brian.
I would like to give a shout out to my bed because I'm going to be missing it for this next week. My next couple days are booked beyond max.
I just thought of a new shout-out I want to do. Check out my website at chrisgcomics.com and go to emeraldcitycomiccon.com to check out a weekly webcomic that I draw, which is written by writer Brad Geiger, who is also a cartoonist for Evil Inc. Comics.
I have to agree with Chris that I follow it, and it's a great strip, and wow, does it ring true.
Awesome. We'll link it up to our page, Chris.
Yeah. The name of the strip is Tales from the Con. So I don't know why I didn't think to mention that when we first started talking about convention stories. But if you want a whole bunch of other convention stories, check out Tales from the Con at emeraldcitycomiccon.com.
And don't forget, boys and girls, our benefactor, pensdragonspost.com as well. Check out there for all your news and about comics, toys, movies, etc. You name it, it's on there. Mr. Brian Isaac is the publisher for that, and we thank him for allowing us to post on there as well. All right, y'all. Well, good show. Pleasure having y'all again. And until next week. See y'all later.
Thank you.